We're getting into the Sorceress. They need to nerf everything. They need to nerf this tree. They need to nerf this tree. They need to nerf this tree. Teleport, I don't know, make it go backwards. So you got to use weird Rocket League logic to figure out how to do it. Static, it should hurt the Sorceress. You want to hurt the demons? You hurt yourself too. Don't even get me started on the cold skills. You trying to tell me that there's a blizzard over there and you ain't got to put on warm clothes? These skills are ridiculous. Nerf everything. All right, no, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. We don't got to nerf her. I promise. We don't have to nerf the Sorceress for her to feel good walking into patch 2.5 for Diablo 2 Resurrected. But if I got you, go ahead and throw a like on the video, maybe subscribe to the channel. Let me know down below. Maybe you're serious. We just got to nerf her into the ground. But I think there are a lot of places where we could take skills that the Sorceress currently has, bring them up to par or give them some kind of niche utility, and legitimately diversify the buildscape of the Sorceress. I know a lot of people like to think that everybody just kind of plays the Blizzard Sorceress to start the ladder, and you're not wrong. The only thing though is that the Sorceress might have the most diverse field of viable solo and hybrid build trees out of any character in the game. I think that should be celebrated. She's a phenomenal character, but maybe some of her skills could get a little bit of a touch up. Let's get into it. Starting in the cold tree, the first skill that really needs a little bit of something extra is actually Frost Nova. With the changes in 2.4 and the additional synergies to Frost Nova, it really looked like the skill was going to be a legitimate endgame build viable option, something similar to the regular Lightning Nova tree. What it comes down to though is that in the endgame, Frost Nova's scaling on endgame gear, even with best in slot, just does not compare to the other cold options that are available to her. And while I don't like just saying, hey, do a little bit of a buff here, realistically, it just needs slightly better scaling at the last tier of skill levels so that if you are adding additional skill points past your 20 hard points, you're getting a bigger and bigger reward out of going fully supportive into the cold tree. Then the only other skill in the cold tree that I think really needs to be looked at is Ice Bolt. Looking at Charge Bolt, which is realistically the only bolt skill that is used in the endgame version of any build. The reason why Charge Bolt is because it does the shotgun effect, right? For both Ice Bolt and for Firebolt, we'd like to see them get some type of scaling of additional missiles that would also shotgun. The cool thing about the bolts is that they are so low damage, even if they were to shotgun, you would need to get much closer to your target to get the full effect out of it. So you're kind of taking the Sorceress out of her comfort zone, which is being able to blast everything at max range, and making her change up her play style a bit. And if you're rewarding people for being more face tanky on a Sorceress, I think that's a really good direction for these skills to go in general. While we just proved that Shiver armor and chilling armor absolutely have a use, it's kind of sad that the only place where they really shine is in a pacifist hell run where you can't attack any monsters. So these are kind of your best options. The problem with Shiver armor and chilling armor is that they are 60-point build around defensive skills. So you need to max Shiver armor and frozen armor and chilling armor. I really love the different armors and I like that they have different utilities. The damage totals need to be brought to a point where putting 60 points into a skill tree actually gets you a benefit. That being said, I don't think that a defensive buff really needs to be a workaround skill. So either condensing their synergies or giving them synergies with some of the other skills in the tree rather than with each other. So maybe Shiver armor would synergize with Frost Nova and Ice Bolt. So now you have this really tanky in your face close range type of cold Sorceress that we've never seen before. And maybe chilling armor would synergize with your Glacial Spike and your Ice Blast. So now it's a tool for you to have on a Blizzard Sorceress just to increase your overall area damage, considering Blizzard is pretty condensed in where it applies its damage. There's only one skill in the Lightning tree that still needs something for it to really make sense to actually put 20 points into, and that's Thunderstorm. Obviously, Thunderstorm is a 1-point wonder right now on a Nova build, or if you really don't want to get any additional utility, you can max it. The problem with Thunderstorm is that A, it destroys your eyes. If you've never cast Thunderstorm and then gone to a place like Durance of Hate or Talrash's Tombs, then you may actually live to see a day where you never need glasses, but everybody else who actually uses Thunderstorm is gonna go blind by the age of 40. So first, let's just cut down that effect a little bit. 2, why is this called Thunderstorm? It's a lightning storm. It hits people with lightning bolts. The skill doesn't deal physical damage, and it's not hitting people with the percussive blast of thunder, which is just the sound that you hear when lightning strikes. Can we just call this lightning storm? It literally hits people with bolts of lightning. Summon a deadly thunderstorm that strikes your enemies with bolts of lightning. That is a lightning storm. Okay. Now that we got kind of past the meme parts of this, let's talk about the actual skill itself. The major problem with Thunderstorm is that it's a single target damage skill, and on a Nova build that has AoE, you would think, oh, it needs a single target skill. It only shoots a bolt of lightning down every 2 seconds, so it's not like you're gonna sit there and wait for Thunderstorm to kill a monster. I'd really love to see this hit multiple targets, maybe an additional target at 10 and then 2 additional targets at 20 skill points, or, and this actually plays into the Thunderstorm if we want to keep calling it that, have the bolt deal damage and an AoE around it that also applies a stun. So now it kind of makes sense, right? A monster just got struck by a bolt of lightning and is being blasted by thunder. Having it be disoriented makes sense in the theme of the skill. Now, just because I know he'll tear my leg off if I don't mention it, Teo doesn't like the idea of Thunderstorm giving you a free AoE crowd control skill, and I tend to agree with him. Here in the Fire Tree, we have a very similar change for Inferno that you've seen us recommend for Wake of Inferno and for Arctic Blast, and this is the idea of having it apply in a smaller radius cone so that monsters within the area of your Inferno are all getting hit, and you're more likely to be applying that damage to a target than you would previously. Right now, where it just shoots out the jet of fire, even at max level, sitting there and targeting down monsters, killing things with Inferno just feels terrible. You're still being penalized by needing to stop and channel a skill, but you're actually getting some kind of benefit out of it. Blaze is actually an incredibly cool skill. The problem with Blaze, especially as we saw in our pacifist run, is that it generates underneath you, and then you need to walk backwards and hope that the monster walks into it. On top of that, while you do have the run walk buff while having the skill up, it feels like a lot of investment in APM to get a very small benefit out of it, even if you fully maximize its synergies and its damage potential. So the first thing that we'd like to see is that Blaze actually have an aura around you, and that aura potentially reducing monsters' fire resistance. The idea that the Sorceress powers up with Blaze, and then for a short duration in the immediate area around her, you're gonna be a more effective and get more DPS out of your skills. This would also go a long way to help instigate the idea of a more forward-facing and in the midst of the commotion and the danger type of Sorceress play. The other thing that we'd like to see for Blaze, just so that it actually can be used as a means of stacking a ton of damage onto a single target, is that the Blaze would generate in front of the Sorceress. So the idea here is that the fire is coming out from in front of her, and as you run forward, it continues to generate in front of you, rather than underneath and behind you. This way you could run up to a monster and the Blaze would apply onto where they are standing, because right now Blaze almost cannot be used on ranged monsters. So you have to like cast Blaze, run around in a circle in front of some ranged monsters, teleport away, but have them at the edge of the screen, and then they would slowly walk into it, and then they're dead. And you're like, great, why didn't I just cast Fireball and Meteor, or Firewall for that matter? Perfect segue, because walking into Firewall, while I think the skill is in a really good place, it just needs a little bit more for it to be more viable and to be more essential for a build around skill. Firewall gains radius for its total wall length, which is cool, right? The idea is that given infinite monsters in a line, you can hit more and more of them. Except the screen in Diablo 2 and where monsters generate just isn't that big, and there's no point to me covering the entirety of it if monsters are only going to walk directly towards me in a funnel. We'd also like to see Firewall get just a little bit thicker on additional skill levels. This means that it would be more easy for you to include more monsters within its overall area of effect. And when you're using as a boss killing skill, the boss, if they're moving around, especially if you're like moat tricking Mephisto, is more likely to be running through it at any given time because it's a very, very thin line of fire projectile that is actually able to deal damage. For Meteor, the only issue here is that the length of time the Meteor takes to actually crash into the ground. If you have a monster that isn't moving and you're just spam casting it, The regularity of falling meteors feels pretty good, but when you're trying to stick and move and you have monster packs that are moving as well, timing that meteor fall time and its overall damage output really starts to get hindered by the fact that it takes so long for the meteor to crash. Timing it out roughly, just playing around with some different times, like 1.5 to 2 seconds for an actual drop time on the meteor feels a lot better than it does right now. I think 1.5 seconds might be a little bit too fast, a little bit too much of a damage increase, but 2 seconds would feel a lot better. And then lastly, the only other skill that we think needs a little bit of a pick-me-up would actually be warmth. The problem with warmth right now is that unless you're memeing with the skills in the left part of this tree, warmth is only a 1-point wonder, and it increases your mana recovery rate, so you might as well put a point into it. The cool idea with warmth here, no pun intended, would be to add on a bit of replenish life as well. The idea that warmth just helping your wounds to heal a bit faster kind of fits into the theme, we think. Sorceress is in the bottom tier that receives health from health potions, so if you didn't know, each character actually receives a different amount of health and mana from potions. Sorceress receives the least amount from healing potions and the most amount from mana potions. So warmth giving a little bit of replenished life that would then benefit from having additional plus skills on would just go a long way to kind of help her feel a little bit better in the early game, and might incentivize people to put more points into it even in the later game, especially if you're playing on hardcore or you're trying to really play that immortal sorceress ideal. The skill right now is a must include on every build, but I don't think anybody feels particularly good about putting the 1 point here. There you go. Honestly, I think those are the only skills on the Sorceress that really need any touch up or could gain a little bit more utility to kind of bring them up to par with the rest of the skills that the Sorceress has. I know a lot of people, especially on the Paladin video that we just posted, are really in the minds of nerf these classes. They are too dominant in the meta. And I just want to say, because I get a lot of those comments all of the time, in games where meta matters, where there's legitimate competition, I absolutely agree that nerfing a class that is overrepresented can often be a good way of increasing the health of that meta. When we're talking about Diablo 2, God, I know I'm gonna get roasted for this, but you know what? Gotta stand in your truth. I think it's cool to hate meta options, especially the Paladin and the Sorceress, because people feel like they're forced to play that character to be able to be at the same place as other people at the beginning of a ladder. But whether or not a person is playing a comparatively more powerful character than yours in another game legitimately does not impact your experience in your game. And let's face it, unless you're doing bail runs or C-bail runs, or if you're ridiculous enough to do the 99 grind, you're never really playing with other people in your game. And even if you are, you're split farming. So the Javazon blowing up a screen, or the Blessed Hammer Paladin having an easy time in Chaos Sanctuary, or even the Sorceress getting to Mephisto faster than you, doesn't mean you have to play those characters. I know I'm going on a bit of a tirade here, but I just wanted to give a bit more weight to a reason why I do think that some Sorceress skills can receive a buff right now, and it would make the overall gameplay experience healthier because we would get a different approach and different playstyle for the Sorceress, so that less people are incentivized to just play a Blizzard Sorc at the beginning of the ladder, farming Mephisto. But let me know what you think. Even if you disagree with me, I would love to hear it. I can't stress this enough. The amount of amazing comments and ideas and additional feedback that we're getting down in the comments on these videos are just absolutely fantastic. So many people are so passionate about this game, and like me, have been playing it for a very, very long time. So it's just awesome to get that insight from as many people as possible, because who knows, if enough people share an idea and it becomes cool enough and it gets enough traction, maybe we might see that change. Maybe not in patch 2.5, but moving forward. Thank you again so much for checking out this video. I really, really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.